Hi everyone, it's Evangeline here at eTrailer. Today we have the INNO Tire Hold HD. This is a two-bike electric bike carrier, and we're going to take a look at how it fits here on our 2023 Cadillac XT4. If you're looking for a bike rack with a lot of weight capacity to carry around those heavier bikes, but something that makes it easier to do so, this is something that I tend to recommend to a lot of people. Now, before moving on, there is a version of this rack that is very future-proof, which is going to be the quick base version where you can switch out the bike rack and replace it with a box or a cargo carrier. That is available here at eTrailer if you're interested in that. But if you're looking for just a bike rack that is solid and is dual wheel mount, then let's take a look at how this one fits here on our XT4. Right off the bat, I like that weight capacity of 150 pounds for two bikes or 80 pounds for a single bike. We have a lot of ground clearance too on our XT4, great for if we have steep driveways, but not so great when you need to load bikes up. Another thing is that it does have a tilt-away that is easy to use. However, it does get pretty close to the door. So if you do have mountain bikes with some long handlebars, that is something to keep an eye out for. To tilt away, we have a handle up front. You just pull that handle. You'll see a bright red indicator showing that it is in the open position. And now we can open up our door. So remember how I talked about handlebars? Well, this is going to be a good time to talk about that. We're going to hold our door right here, getting close to our handlebar. So what I would do is I just push the bike out a tad, and then we can lift the door up with no issue. This way we're able to get into our cargo area, grab whatever we need. If we need to put away groceries or take them out, we can do so without having to take our bikes off. Now it's simply a matter of remembering that you do have that clearance to keep an eye out for. So as we close our door, we're just going to hold this out and bring it all the way down. And to bring the bike rack back up, lift up, it snaps into place, and now you're ready to drive. The way this secures the bikes is you have a dual wheel mount design, meaning you have cradles that hold the front and the rear wheel. They tighten down on those wheels and hold everything in. Now, in order to remove the bike, every brand does this a little differently. I kind of like how Inno does it, where you press this button to loosen that cradle, and then you push out on that mount. Now, at first it might be a little tricky, but you can operate it here from the middle. So 1 and 2, and our bike is released. Now, for those heavier racks or heavier bikes, you do have the option of removing the support bars for those cradles, and then they can go all the way down to the ground. That's going to be helpful for if you would rather ramp the bike down versus lifting it up and down. The downside to that is if you actually want to use a ramp, that is sold separately. This here is the add-on ramp available here at eTrailer. I would recommend it for your XT4 because this does sit a little bit high up, and ramping an 80-pound bike would be much preferable to lifting it up and down. It is a little bit of extra work, but for this specific vehicle, I do think it is worth it. Now, it is a little bit of a process getting this all set up, plus your ramp does not store inside the rack, but rather you have to keep this in the car. So check that one out here on our website if you're curious about that process. Another unique feature to the INNO Tire Hold is how you can adjust the cradle for different wheelbases and different tire sizes. So this cover pops out, and then if you have a smaller bike, you just bring it in over here, and then you lift it back up, and now you're ready to go. So compared to other similarly designed racks, an example would be the Rocky Mounts guide rail, where you have to deal with some nuts and bolts. This is going to be a much faster process. That's going to be helpful if you have different types of bikes that you're loading, and it's not always the same one every single time. Taking some measurements on your Cadillac XT4. We'll first measure for the length added. I like to measure from our plastic bumper to the end of the rack. That's 32.5 inches, which is on the larger side, for bike racks. Fortunately, you do have a smaller vehicle, so you do have room to spare, which is helpful if you have a small garage or need to park into a tight spot. The next measurement is going to be your ground clearance. So the first thing I do is end of the rack to the ground. That's 20.5 inches. That's helpful to know if you have steep driveways or you hit a lot of speed bumps. Plenty of space there, nothing to worry about. What I then worry about on this car is how high do I have to lift the bikes up. So in our case, 26 inches from the ground to the tray. That's a lot, especially if you have an 80 or 75 pound bike. That's why I would recommend the ramp for this car for those heavier bikes. Now, where our shank sits, let's take a measurement there. Hitch to the ground is 15 inches. You are going to need a 2-inch hitch in order to use this rack when it's available here at etrailer.com. So that shank rise gives us that extra height where it looks better while you're on the road, but also gives you that clearance. The handle we pulled earlier to tilt away, we're going to pull again, but this time we're going to lift up into one of the two portable positions. So there's this position right here, which is going to be great for hatch access, and this position right here, which is going to be the most compact. This is also how you'll have your bike rack stored when it's in your garage. Now, I really like this position here because, as you can see, opening up the door, plenty of clearance, not worried about it. Door opens, you can grab whatever you need in your hatch, and you're not playing around with the bike rack at the end. While it is a single hand operation, if you have your hands full of all kinds of other things, this can be very useful. While it looks like it comes close to the vehicle, there's actually plenty of space. So measuring from that mast to that bumper, we have about 2¼ inches of clearance there. So I'm not concerned about it moving any closer than that. That's going to be the same as if you folded it up completely. Having it out in its tilted position, taking some measurements, bumper to the end of the rack. This sits at 2 feet or 24 inches. And then up, this sits at about 13 inches. So big difference compared to when this was folded down. You'll have it in this position when you're just driving around town and you're not taking your bikes out just yet. I like how it looks in this position. You also have the ability to keep everything locked, whether it's a bike rack or your bikes, using this knob in the back. Folded up like this, let's talk about our window and our lights. Those are mainly visible, although the top of the rack does sit over the bottom of the lights. What it does cover is the backup camera as well as the license plate. So that is something to consider if you're concerned about losing that. I usually rely on the rear window because the bikes would cover that camera anyways when the bikes are loaded up. It's really rare to get a solid high weight capacity bike rack that's easy to use and has everything included like locks as well as functionality at such an affordable price point compared to other racks. Now there are some downsides to this bike rack. I wish it tilted down a little bit further. As we saw, I had to pull the bike out just a little bit in order to make sure it cleared our door. But if you have a road bike or shorter handlebars, that's nothing to worry about. Now if you're looking for alternatives though, something to consider is the Ceres MHS. That's going to be another also potentially modular system where you can switch out the bike racks for a cargo carrier. That way if you need to carry around cargo and bikes and have that dual wheel mount process, plus it tilts down even further, that's a potential option for you. Another thing I did mention earlier in this video was getting the Inno Quick Base with 2 bike carrier kit that looks similar to this, but you can switch that out for a box. Super popular. I use it a lot on road trips because of its functionality. But if you are looking for a relatively affordable bike rack with a lot of weight capacity and a lot of functionality, this will give you a great bang for your buck. This was a look at the INNO Tire Hold HD 2 electric bike rack, and you saw it on the 2023 Cadillac XT4.